Have you ever been part of something absolutely massive, but still felt like you were totally on your own? Well, that's the feeling right at the heart of the global tourism industry. Today, we're going to dig into some really fascinating research that asks, why do so many people in tourism feel so disconnected? And what can we actually do about it? First, let's just wrap our heads around the scale we're talking about here. Tourism is projected to contribute $11 trillion to the global GDP this year. That is a mind-boggling number. It's about 10% of the world's entire economy, and it supports 1 out of every 10 jobs on the planet. But as we're about to see, just because you're a giant doesn't mean you're not broken up into a million little pieces. And that leads us to the big mystery, right? If this industry is such a powerhouse, why do the people actually on the ground, the folks running small businesses, leading nonprofits, guiding tours, why do they so often feel like they're just shouting into the void? Well, a study out of West Virginia tried to solve this exact puzzle. And you know what? The answers they found are relevant just about everywhere. This brings us to what the research really highlights as a trillion-dollar paradox. I mean, on the surface, you've got all this money, all these jobs, this booming industry, but you scratch that surface and you find the people doing the actual work are missing the support and connection they desperately need. So let's break it down. On one hand, yeah, tourism is a huge economic engine, no question. But on the other, this research shows that professionals are constantly struggling to find the help they need. They feel cut out of the big conversations, the strategic planning, and there's this giant gap between how tourism should work in theory and the messy day-to-day reality of it all. So how in the world do you investigate a feeling? A feeling of being disconnected? Well, the researchers in West Virginia did the smart thing. They went straight to the source. They talked to the people who live and breathe this industry every single day. Their approach was pretty straightforward. They built a really detailed 23-question survey and sent it out to 187 tourism professionals all across the state. And this wasn't just one type of person. They got a great mix of everybody: small business owners, nonprofits, government folks, and members of what are called Convention and Visitors Bureaus, or CVBs. And what they found? Well, it wasn't some simple, easy answer. Instead, it was this series of really stark contradictions that honestly get right to the very heart of the problem. Okay, first, get a load of this number. When they asked, is tourism an important part of the economy, 100% of people said yes. Total, complete, unanimous agreement. Everybody knows tourism matters. No surprise there. But, and this is a really big but, this is where that unanimous agreement just falls off a cliff. Because knowing something is important and feeling like it's actually being supported, turns out those are two very different things. When they asked if tourism businesses are getting the local, regional, and state support they need to succeed, that 100% plummets to just 56%. That means nearly half the people in this critical industry feel like they're being left to fend for themselves. And oh boy, the disconnect gets even wider when you bring politics into it. The data really shows that one of the biggest frustrations for people on the ground is this feeling that the people in charge just don't get it. And the numbers back it up. A tiny 26% of people agreed that politicians actually understand the tourism industry. Just think about that. That is a gigantic gap between the folks making the rules and the folks driving this trillion-dollar engine. So what's causing all this? Well, the study pinpoints a fundamental problem, a deep misunderstanding of how the industry really works. They have a great name for it: the ecosystem disconnect. This slide just illustrates the confusion perfectly. On the left, you see what Convention and Visitors Bureaus, the CVBs, actually do. Their job is marketing, period. But look on the right. That's what people think they do. A full 58% believed CVBs were also supposed to help with business development. So people are looking for help from an organization that isn't even designed to provide it. And all of this comes back to this big idea of a tourism ecosystem. The concept is simple. Tourism isn't just a random collection of hotels and tour companies. It's a complex, interconnected system where businesses, government, communities, everybody depends on each other. What happens in one part of the system affects the whole thing. And here's another one of those paradoxes. The professionals in the industry, they seem to get this idea intuitively. A huge majority, 89%, agreed that, yes, tourism businesses are part of a larger system. They can feel that they're all connected. So this quote from the study absolutely nails the aha moment. People know they're part of a system, but they don't understand the specific relationships within it. They can't identify who's supposed to do what or where to turn for specific kinds of help. It's like they feel the ecosystem around them, but they've been given no map. And that leads to a pretty serious consequence, right? If you can't see the map of your own support system, where do you even go when you have a simple question? Well, the answer seems to be everywhere and nowhere. This chart shows that fragmentation in real time. Sure, a lot of people turn to CVBs, but a huge number also just ask local citizens or other businesses. There's no single trusted place to go for information, which means you get inconsistent advice and a lot of wasted time and energy. And the end result of all this confusion and fragmentation is really personal. Less than half of the people surveyed, just 41%, felt they actually had a supportive professional network. And that, right there, is where that feeling of being overwhelmed and alone truly comes from. So, okay, the diagnosis is pretty clear, but what's the cure? The good news is the research also points a way forward. It's all about building a stronger, more connected system. So how do we finally draw that map for everybody? Well, the path forward means we have to shift our thinking. We have to stop focusing on individual businesses and start nurturing the entire ecosystem. It's about being intentional, creating networks where people from different sectors can actually talk, collaborate, and innovate together. And most importantly, it's about helping everyone see the whole system and understand their unique part in it. And look, this isn't just some abstract theory. The research points to a real-world example already happening. In West Virginia, a group called the Tourism Ecosystem Subcommittee has been formed for this exact purpose, to create a framework for this kind of collaboration. They are actively trying to draw a map that so many people felt was missing. So this all leaves us with a final, really important question to think about. And it's not just for West Virginia. It's for any town or region that depends on tourism. Is your community's industry a true ecosystem where all the parts are working together? Or is it just a collection of islands, all doing important work but feeling disconnected, under-resourced, and ultimately a little bit alone?